Hello and welcome to SaksWorks and this incredible, I can't believe our luck, live taping of So Money with Farnoosh Torabi.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
It is a delight. It is a delight and a dream to be able to sit here in this beautiful space and talk to you.
Well, I'm so proud of us for leaving the house, getting dressed, leaving the house, and you know, this is very special. I even got my hair done.
It looks fantastic. Actually, you all look wonderful. and please enjoy our wonderful lunch and the beautiful space here at SaksWorks. Little spiel. We are a new membership space for work, for life, for sort of, we're in a moment of how do we want to live our lives? We've had a year and a half to really think about how we want to restart, and SaksWorks is here to support all your goals, support you in where you work with beautiful space and comforts, and we have wellness space, we have a gym and wellness studio and wonderful programming, if I do say so myself. I'm the VP of programming here, and wonderful programming like Farnoosh. So this is a true delight for me to be able to welcome Farnoosh to SaksWorks to talk about, not only to talk about personal finance and all our personal finance goals, but her new 2022 calendar, which is going to allow us all to be the crypto gazillionaires of our dreams. I'm just kidding, Farnoosh.
Ish.
So anyhow, so Farnoosh, welcome. And let's just jump right into it. Tell me what made you want to join everybody every day of their lives?
365 days of me.
To give them finance tips.
Sorry, and you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This is really a treat, and this view is everything. Having you all come is also so special. This is a really wonderful turnout. Well, I joke that this is the calendar no one ever knew they needed. And when the fine people at Workman Publishing came out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in, you know, creating a calendar that is derived from your podcast, I thought, no. I don't think this is something that I want to do or could work. And so we just kept talking, and you know, the more I thought about it, I had been doing the podcast for well over 5-6 years at that point, and I didn't even have like a pencil with the name So Money on it. You know, there was like nothing you could hold in your hand, a T-shirt or something like. No, there was no swag. There was no So Money,
except for 18 million downloads.
Yeah,
and going.
It was in our hearts and in our minds, and now finally something that you could hold and keep on your desktop or give as a gift, and really celebrate the essence of the show and what it really stands for. And yeah, you know, in a way, you know, have me with you throughout the days and weeks and months. The show is 3 days a week, so that's plenty. But if you want more, you can, you know, put the calendar wherever you are. And I tried to make sure that it wasn't anything too serious. You know, it's a really fun addition to your, you know, your desktop. It's colorful. It's got some of my favorite quotes and inspiration from the podcast. But yeah, there are some days that are going to walk you through the IRA and the 529. But a lot of it is really a mindset thing, and how to think about money in a way where, you know, you can do it, and you can be all your wildest financial dreams.
I really, before I knew Farnoosh at all, I just knew her because I listened to her podcast, and I would often, like when you're doing laundry or something mundane, and you're just hearing these stories, and I'm not really a financial wisdom person. I'm going to be asking the questions. I'm not going to be giving anybody any tips, except for maybe how not to do things. But I was so delighted when I actually met her, and then it was a life goal to be on her podcast, and I finally was. I was on her podcast earlier this year, and it was.
And you had great advice. You really did.
And buy the dip, right?
She's an early crypto enthusiast and participant, among other fantastic financial strategies that you share on the show. So I feel this is my thing. I feel like I wanted to do this show because I wanted to present the strategies and experiences of everyday people around money. We are all financial experts by virtue of walking the earth and, you know, spending and consuming and thinking about money. I mean, we all have experiences to share. Maybe we're not all PhDs in finance and we're not all accountants, but you know, look at me. I didn't start out. I have a degree in finance from Penn State, which means I took like 4 classes on, you know, money. But what really made me an expert was talking to other people about money, and mostly everyday people, right? What brings financial stories to life is showcasing the experiences, the good and the bad of everyday people. That's how it is relatable and sticks. So I was happy to have you on the show, and you're the perfect guest. It's really these are the guests that I love to have, or the sort of the unexpected experts when it comes to money, not the the usual suspects.
I am not a usual suspect. I actually feel, though, that there's, you know, and I'm very lucky to be sitting here now, but I founded a company with a friend for 10 years. We bootstrapped it. It was not always anybody's idea of a financial windfall, though we loved it. I was a freelance writer before that, and I did all of that after deciding I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore. So I experienced this very different levels of financial wellness. And I do think that there's a degree of expertise that comes from not having very much money at all.
Yeah.
And you experience a whole different side of the financial system. Good times. Anyhow, especially after this past year. But I would love to get to some of the tips in the calendar,
yes.
Which, by the way, in addition to helping you with your personal finance, also will let you know whether or not it's Wednesday, which I think is useful.
Let's not overlook that fact.
But we are coming out of a time when I don't know about you, but like I genuinely would be like, what day is it? I have no idea.
Right.
Today's Friday? Okay, great.
It's November
so glad
already?
Right, exactly.
Right.
So I bookmarked some of these. Let's just see. Okay. I loved this one. And not just because it's going to allow me to sing some 70s disco. Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. Do the hustle.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't not do that. I'm not built that way. When you're young, a side hustle can fill your budget gaps. And I think that's very, again, useful for this gig economy, useful for people who, I mean, depends on your definition of young, everybody gets to define it their own way. As a young person, I'm defining it that way. Depending on your skill set, you can find a market. Tutor.com is a great place to find teaching gigs. Upwork can be useful for graphic designers and other techies, and TaskRabbit can be a good resource for those with a car and spare weekends.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The word hustle sometimes irks me, this culture of hustle. But quite literally, in that paragraph, it's really all about optimizing your time for your financial goals. And if one of your financial goals is to make more money, there are resources now more than ever to be able to do that on our own time and in our own way. So whether that's you speak Spanish or you love algebra, you can go on tutor.com and start teaching virtually as soon as, within a few days. And then I know you have a friend who is enjoying TaskRabbit and making some extra income that way. And so it's one of those things that is a good reminder to know that you have options if that is something that is important to you to sort of make money. When I was in my 20s, I had a lot of side hustles because making $18 an hour before taxes in my 20s in New York wasn't quite cutting it, and I would babysit. This is before the internet really became what it is today. We didn't have these websites to tap into to make money, so I would pet sit. I don't like animals particularly, but this was like, you got to do what you got to do. I bird sat.
What is bird sitting?
A professor at my school asked if I would bird sit over the 4th of July weekend.
What kind of bird
was
this?
It was like a talking bird, one of those.
Did you teach it anything?
No, but it would dance. Like I would put on like Z100, and it would bop and sing. It was peculiar. And the story really, so we're digressing here, but she offered me, we never agreed on a price, but I was like, it's a whole weekend, long weekend.
Farnoosh.
Oh. And so
so
she invited me over to her apartment when she got back to kind of, do a post-mortem on the situation, like how was it? And I think I may have to water her plants too. And so she sat me down and told me all about her vacation, and she was my professor, so there's a bit of a power dynamic here, and I didn't want to immediately start with okay, so you owe me $75. But I don't know if she just forgot, but she's like, all right, well, hope you have a good day, you know, like walking me to the door and hadn't paid me yet. And I was like, okay, this is my moment. I always, you know, you always have to like, you know, don't ask for the money 3 days later, or it's like when you start a job and you're like, can I get a raise like after we've already like signed the papers? No, you've got to ask for the money. There's a window. So I'm about to leave and I turn to her and I say, so you had mentioned that you would pay about $60 for the weekend. Is that still good? She's like, oh yeah. I'll write you a check. You know, it's like she just didn't remember, and
I hope the check
I had
was
to
good.
Squeeze it out of her, and I felt it was not cool because she put me in that spot. But I mean, I've had it since I was little. I have to tell you, I will get the money. You know, like I will get the money. You promised me the money. I did the work. Give me the money. So that was
yeah, that's a real nice bird you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it.
Do you know what I went through with this bird? So anyway, story you didn't think you were going to get today, but.
This is, I mean, this is what we get.
It's no coincidence I became who I am, right? An aggressive money person.
I mean, I feel like that's a very nice segue into May 26, 2022. Be financially curious.
Yes, yes. You know, this is actually something that Annabelle Gurwitch taught me on my show recently. She is a famous comedian, actress, and author. And her latest book talks about her sort of, you know, coming to terms with becoming, turning 50, I believe, or 60, 50. And just, you know, she was always financially solvent and independent throughout her career, which is amazing to think about, you know, as a woman in Hollywood who's not really like a red carpet actress, but like she hustled, right? She worked, she had like long-standing gigs, was the breadwinner in her marriage. But then later in life, you know, as it happens, gets divorced, gets cancer, all these sort of things happen, and then the pandemic, and you know, she, in the book, chronicles all this almost like through this lens of humor, which I could not get over. You know, during the episode, I just said, how do you have this unrelenting optimism and sort of positivity around really hard, tough things that you've gone through? And she's like, well, you know, if I don't, like, this is what makes me survive. This is what allows me to like get up every morning, is to sort of find the funny in all of this. But also, she said, it helps to stay curious, right? Even at this stage in my life, you think you have all the answers, you don't. And then life throws you all these curveballs and you have to kind of learn again and pick up again. And this curiosity keeps me humble. And it was just part of her way of, I guess, navigating all of these challenges, and I just thought that was so inspirational. It's advice that can carry into your financial life, but also in so many other realms of your life. And that's really what I think, again, going back to the purpose of this and the show and like the underlying current, which is that, yeah, we're talking about money, but we're really talking about life. And money is such an important part of life that we don't talk about. But when we talk about money, we're not really talking about money, right? We're talking about how we grew up, we're talking about our biases, we're talking about our relationships and the lens through which we see the world. It all filters into money, and I think that's what keeps me going. Because if we were just talking about 401ks every day, I don't think I could do it, you know. But this show and these conversations just constantly are opening up new topics.
I think also even the act of talking about money is about culture, because we have all been a culture that we're not supposed to talk about money, that it is improper, that it's rude, that it's crass, right? All of which is engineered by people who have money to maybe have fewer questions about where that money goes and where it comes from and how they spend it and who gets hurt in that process. So just the act of talking about money is almost like a transgressive act, especially for, you know, communities that are typically not in those realms.
Right. It's not fluent. It's not a fluency. And that's the other cool part about having something tangible like this in your home, at work, is that it can break the ice, or it's just like a, you know, an innocent reminder
to your boss. Here you go. Like, so I have some questions.
Yeah, like it keeps it in the mix. It keeps money in the mix in your day, in your life. And sometimes you just need that that little something, right? To give you that, whether it's an app or this or a book or a podcast. I think having a relationship with something that promotes good financial thoughts and behavior is always, why not?
It even just reminds you, or it says a reminder out, like a visible reminder that this is okay to talk about.
And it's important.
Okay to think about, important to think about, and should always be a factor. Because, I mean, with the messages we get about, like, you should just be so glad, particularly, so I worked, prior to being at SaksWorks, I mentioned I had a company, it was called TheLi.st, it's a women's network. And when myself and my co-founder, Glynis McNichol, when we started it, 11 years ago, yikes. We really, like, there was so much pressure to make it a nonprofit because it was about uplifting women, it was about helping women, and we were very pointed in saying it has to be a for-profit venture because women are always, gently encouraged to just give away their advice, their labor, their help, their support, all of that, and it's constantly an issue. So actually saying what I am doing provides value, has value, and should earn value.
It's such a good point. You bring up a really, really big topic that often goes undiscussed. But yeah, it's sometimes it's not blatant, but it is what is communicated so often to women, that you should just be happy to have the job, to make the money, don't ask for the raise, stay quiet. Turn your business into a nonprofit, and it's true though, we are generous, generally speaking. If you look at statistics, women on all income levels contribute more as a percentage of their income to charitable events and organizations more than men, and that we know there's the pay gap and all of that, and yet still women are more charitable. And so I do say sometimes, when women make more, the world becomes a better place. Not because I want women to give away their money, but I'm like, we're going to do it anyway. Like, don't tell us we have to do it. Like, we'll want to do it. Don't make this a requirement. Like, it's going to happen. Relax. Everyone's going to benefit. But yeah, to make it sort of like this expectation is wrong.
It's always just good to examine the expectations and your natural inclinations, and especially around money, what feels uncomfortable. Like the first, if you feel uncomfortable around money, it's useful to just have a moment and stop and think about, why am I uncomfortable about this, and what am I not talking about? And frankly, when you're not talking about money, that
says something.
Yeah, but in relationships, in families, I don't know. I'm not a big watcher of Succession. I feel like that family is like a little messed up about money. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and it's part and parcel to a lot of messed upness. It's attached to a lot of dysfunction, I think, in the family. But yeah, I am fascinated with how the wealthy think about money. My parents and I, so growing up, we were not very wealthy, but as immigrants, we climbed the ladder over the years. My parents were very, American dream focused. But there was this family that was just so wealthy, and we would hang out with them sometimes, and my mother would come home and she'd say, those rich people, they don't know how to spend their money. If I was that rich, I know exactly what to do with my money. And it was just interesting because I don't think my mother was right or wrong. I just think it's an interesting thing. Like, you think that you criticize how other people spend and save, and you think that once you become wealthy, you're going to do all the right things and do things differently. And I don't think that's true. I don't think money changes you. And I know this may sound controversial. I don't think money changes you. I think sometimes it makes you just more of who you are.
I would just like to experiment with that at some point.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think we should all be able to experiment with that. But what do you think? I mean, I just feel like money amplifies your best and worst qualities sometimes. If you're already a generous person, more money may make you more generous. You can be greedy and not be rich, right? You can be greedy with sort of your energy and a lot of other resources, and then you make money, and that could also be the next way that you're exhibiting greed, right? So, or selfishness. So it's fascinating. I'm still working on the thesis, but this is kind of what I'm hearing and seeing.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot easier to be your best self when you don't have that stress.
Absolutely.
Over you, right? Like when you're not monitoring your credit going up and down with your ability to pay your interest on that credit card, or just going from paycheck to paycheck, or something unexpected hits you and you're like, I was not expecting that. I mean, I speak from experience. I if I may, have still paying off credit card debt from family litigation, family court litigation. That can get very expensive. I am a single mom. I have a daughter. She has a father in another country. We had to work things out. That can be expensive, working things out.
Absolutely.
It's a lot easier to be your best self when you don't have these issues nipping at you. And so, yes, I wish not only for myself to have the opportunity to prove that, but really for anybody, especially. And I think that this, AOC is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is really, one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of hers is because she speaks truth to financial power, in the sense that she says, I am aware of what working class people, what the value of a dollar is to them, and I see this, this congressman who came from wherever he came from criticizing me, I would love to see them, kick people out of a bar at 4 a.m. kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, I want to be careful though in that we tend to have in our culture this quick demonization of wealthy people, and I definitely agree that if you're wealthier you should pay more taxes and you should pay your fair share and all of that, but a lot of us grow up with this mindset that being rich is bad, or the people who are rich are not nice. You think about what you see on TV, right? It's always the mean oil man in the movies who's imposing his power on the little people. And we were watching Muppets the other night with my kids, right? And that's that's the characterization of the wealthy mean man. And I did
Newsies, Ruby's musical theater class, and I was like, great, you're going to learn about unions.
Right. But yeah, and so all these experiences, I think, filter into this mindset that we grew up with, that there is a toxicity with wealth, that therefore I shouldn't achieve that, or that's not who I am. And I think that's a really unfortunate kind of mentality, because we've talked about it up until now, that when you have money, you can do a lot of good with it, and you can make your life better and your community better, and you can make change and make impact. And I want those stories more to be, the ones that we share, and because they're true. And I think there's the other side is true as well, but I think people need to grow up with a more holistic idea of what money can mean as a resource and as a tool.
I mean, I feel like this is a decent segue into Barbara Corcoran.
Yeah, she's the first in the chat in the calendar. I should send her one of these books.
Barbara, come to SaksWorks.
Yeah,
we'd love to have you.
She probably would.
Okay, then I guess
we'll work on that.
I'll have.
She's very generous with her time and her advice, and throughout my career she's shown up, in different ways. And she probably doesn't even know how helpful she has been to me. But she has come on the show, and for those of you who are not familiar with her past, Barbara Corcoran obviously founded Corcoran Real Estate, sold it for $66 million, is now on Shark Tank, and I think it was in her 50s, or she didn't get the job on Shark Tank, and then really advocated for herself, wrote to the executive producer and was like, you have to hire me, this is why, and it was this sort of last ditch effort email, and she got the job. And but I think the quote there is really about embracing the unknown. Yeah, so her mother was a huge influence on her life. She was one of 9 children growing up in I think it was in, I want to say New Jersey. And here's the quote. So Barbara Corcoran has built a multi-billion-dollar business. She's on Shark Tank, and she's written many books, and she has a podcast. And what drives her to accomplish it all, she says, I don't want to die and think, oh, I wish I shoulda, coulda. I'm too greedy. I just want to experience it all and see where it all goes. It doesn't have to succeed. I just have to get there and see what it's all about. I thought that was a really great quote to open the whole calendar with. She says greedy, but I would argue she's just really extremely curious and driven, and wants to take life by the what. She has had a horns. she's had a really hard life, and everything is, I would say that so of course she's had privileges along the way, but no one told her to start a business. No one told her to write, to turn it into a multi-million-dollar business. She said she doesn't even like real estate. Did you hear about this? Like, she's like, I don't even like. I just wanted to create something interesting and grow it and have a team, and she did. And I think that's just remarkable that you don't. I think you told me this. Oh my gosh, where did Terry Trespicio? Everybody to my left. She's got a great book coming out called Unfollow Your Passion. And that was it. We talked about that on my podcast, that you don't need to be passionate about something in order for it to be fruitful. You just have to sort of do what you are good at sometimes,
I feel like this is really, it's covering the spectrum of financial advice, right? Because it's the lofty stuff, which is be curious, try things, try new businesses, figure out what you're good at, make mistakes. But at the same time, I couldn't help but notice on your birthday, right? I asked
this
Farnoosh
wasn't
what
well
she
thought
put
out
on her birthday.
Yeah.
Is like a very Farnoosh piece of advice. It's diversify your accounts. When you're saving for retirement, that assumes a lot.
You can skip my birthday on this calendar. I mean, it's important advice, but it's definitely not like like I said, it's a diverse. It's an eclectic bunch of pages there.
But it's useful. This is the thing, right? Like traditional IRAs, 401ks. These are things that it's important to have. But the very next page, defer gratification. So on the one hand, it's like embrace the unknown. On the other hand, it's defer gratification. Like, this is the thing. Like, how? Like, you are the personal finance expert. You have heard all of these stories. Like, when are we supposed to defer gratification, and when are we supposed to, invest in ourselves? Live our best life. Like, how do we do it? Please tell me.
Well, I think you can do both at the same time. You can have different goals that are today, 5 months from now, 6 years from now. And I think it's always good to have something that you're looking forward to, that's like, of course we can't plan and life happens, but it does help to feel like you're moving towards a flag, that you're moving towards a sunset. And when you start to plant for that, like, with college savings. My kids are 7 and 5, and I have college accounts saved for them. I don't know if they're going to go to college. I hope maybe they'll consider it.
Maybe college won't even exist.
Maybe not. Maybe it won't even be a choice. But I'm going to just do the work, and I'm going to open up the accounts, and we'll take it day by day. But I do check the accounts from time to time, and it's really fun to see the money growing over the years. And it's just an automatic contribution. You kind of forget about it, but then one day you open up the account and you're like, wow, that's like half of college is already saved for if he was to go tomorrow, which probably means I have another, 10x that, and that's like 15 years from now. But that is a way that I am like, it'll be very gratifying when he goes and furthers his education someday, somewhere, and to know that, little by little we were able to make that happen for him and have him graduate debt-free, which is, something that my parents helped me do, and it is a legacy that I'd like to continue.
That's amazing, and I think also speaks to a financial virtue that we haven't discussed yet, which is patience, which is,
it is a virtue, yeah.
The only reason, on the previous podcast when I talked to Farnoosh, I said the only reason that I had Bitcoin was that I bought it on a friend's advice. I bought one in 2014, and then I just forgot about it. And that's the best way to invest in crypto, because then I remembered, and then I started getting into it in January, and now I like look every day. And
is anyone else here into crypto or has invested? Yes, good, great. I mean, I have to admit, it fascinates me. I've done a series of it on my show.
I listened, loved it.
This is my thing. I think it's an alternative investment. I think that's fair to say. It's not like following the S&P 500. Increasingly, it's becoming, we're learning more about it. I don't think it's going away. I don't think all of the different currencies are going to be here forever. I think Bitcoin's going to endure, but the blockchain's really fascinating. I think the technology that it provides is very versatile and could be really meaningful for different businesses. But it's one of those things where you have to be really passionate about it. Like if you love reading articles about cryptocurrency and you find you're like 30 minutes has gone by, 4 hours has gone by, I've gone down this rabbit hole. Like, okay, maybe like, put some money in there, but only after you've done the good work, right, of saving, paying off your debt, putting money in your 401k. If there's extra and this is like something you want to roll the dice on, go for it. I prefer to invest in things like art, which I don't really know if it's going to appreciate, but in the meantime, I can enjoy it because it's in my house, and it may not be something that I want to sell, but I can give to the next, generation or gift to somebody, and that brings me a lot of pleasure. It's not something that I am holding my breath against, that this is going to help me retire, but I think it's got a lot of use cases, and I have moved away from the mentality that it's just a fad. That was definitely how I felt maybe a year ago, like, oh, good luck with that. But I think if you're really into it and serious and will do the research, like, good for you, invest in that, and I hope the best for you. And maybe I will invest in it one day. I did buy an index fund that follows companies that are investing in blockchain technology, that companies that we already know are tried and true, the PayPal's and those kinds of companies. It's a relatively expensive ETF because it has to be actively managed at this point. But I just put a little money in it, and immediately it lost value. I was like, great. But it's how I have found a way to feel good about it. It's like, I want to follow an index, and I like blockchain. I don't know about these cryptocurrencies, but the blockchain seems really valid to me. So I was able to find that that kind of an investment that aligned all of those things, and we'll see. Maybe it'll buy me a car one day. I have no idea.
Well, I just love hearing you talk about PayPal.
It's a good story, nevertheless.
No, but I mean, cryptos can be a good story. It can also be maybe not a good story depending on when you bought, sold.
Depending on the day. I mean, that's like any new investment class, though, right? It just doesn't have a lot of track record. It's still it's in its I don't want to say it's in its infancy, but it's definitely relative to like other traditional asset classes. It's super new.
But it feels so interesting to hear you talk about PayPal as being tried and true, because I remember when PayPal came out and people were like, "What? That's crazy! Oh, I'd never do that." And like now it's tried and true,
right?
And Venmo's tried and true, and so time passes and the narratives get rewritten.
And the reason those companies are tried and true partly is because of adoption, right? We got to a point where we gave in. We're like, okay, you want me to transact with my phone online? How does this work? And slowly but surely that became the norm. And I think eventually that will happen with crypto, where I think part of the hang up right now is that for most of the world, like it's not something that we don't, like, you have to really stop and learn. And it is not easy to like really understand it. It's very abstract.
Oh, I don't understand it.
Right.
I just buy it.
I mean, there's that strategy too. Yeah.
No, I kind of understand it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
it's thorny.
Listen to the podcast. I had some really good guests on it that talked about it.
And you know, when I listened to it, while I was cleaning out my closet.
All right.
Yep. See, I furnish in my home. That's right.
I have a book coming out in 2023. It's like about my life and how I became the weird lady that I am. And there's a chapter called "Love Me Some Windex," because I know that it's not allowed to say as a woman that you like to clean, because then that's like the patriarchy, But I really like to clean. Like, I love cleaning. It gives me such a sense of accomplishment and calm, and a lot of like sorting out that goes on in my head when I'm folding and cleaning. And I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. My mother taught me how to load a dishwasher, which is in and of itself a crazy story. And like the motivation behind that was not as pure. But, I grew up just like, for me, it has helped me during really difficult times in my life when I kind of have to like take my mind off of something and do something what I find to be like purposeful and useful. And, it is what it is. But I love that you can listen to this podcast while cleaning, because it's very touche.
I don't want to give the impression that I am a person who cleans to that degree, but nonetheless, I enjoy your podcast whenever I can listen to it. I'm enjoying being on it right now. I'm enjoying it right now.
Yeah, this is going to air in like a week and a half, so
it's amazing.
Be sure
Who
to
knows
subscribe.
where crypto will be by then?
I mean, I hope that we're all you'll be a millionaire, and I'll be like sour grapes. Yeah,
tens for everyone. We have time for a few questions if anybody has any. Or you want to just like pick a date? We can do that. Ooh, question or random date?
So money roulette. Anybody? Anybody? Oh, Jeannie, hi. We used to work together at Yahoo Finance. Hi.
So out of your calendar, what is your favorite money habit that's been valuable for just 5 years?
That's a good question. So Jeannie wants to know what's my favorite money habit, and that's helped me. I think it's you know, for the longest time, and I used to give this advice in my early beginning days of like giving financial advice, was seeing the numbers. I am very connected to numbers. Like I could probably tell you, can anyone here raise their hand? I mean, don't tell me, but like knows the balance of their various accounts. Like today, like as of like an hour ago, right? So I'm super hyper connected like that. And maybe some people would say that's not a good thing because you don't want to have that fuel like a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, I don't check my investments maybe every day, but actually I do because I use an app. It shows me everything that I have and my husband's, and I can just, it's like a good touch base just to see it's, you know, that everything is where it should be. No, firstly, like no one has hacked my accounts, but it gives me that extra sense of knowledge and connectedness to my money that's very literal. It's not an imaginary. Because what I used to do in my teens and 20s in college was I had a false sense of my financial security. I had a credit card and I had this, you know, DCU checking account. And back then, this is like late 90s, we didn't have, you know, mobile phones and apps and even websites to tell us how much money was in our bank account. We had to use the ATM receipt. And I would use an ATM receipt and it would give me a false sense of, you know, resource because it's not accurate, right? It could take, like, it doesn't show that a check hasn't cleared yet from last week, or that, you know, the purchase you just made 2 hours ago, it hasn't cleared. And so I literally bounced like 20 times, 10 times in 1 week because I hadn't checked my account, and I go to open it and there's like all these overdraft after overdraft, and I panicked. And it's because I just didn't have any sense of what money, I mean, I thought I had a sense because I had just gotten paid and I thought I was rich, but no, because things hadn't cleared and I'd made some grocery purchases. And so that was just, this is probably why I'm on the complete other side of it, where I may be overly protective of knowing. But I'm an example of, you know, ignorance is not bliss. And I did call the credit union that day and I told them what happened, and they cleared like all of them except one of the there were $300 in bounced check and overdraft. It was overdraft.
I mean, that's where banks make a lot of their money, and they made
all
a
of it
killing during the pandemic. And I can say with a fair degree of certainty that the online accounting is also not like up to the second.
True. Right, it's not. And but there's nothing like opening up your bank account and there's like a negative balance in there.
Oh, nothing like it.
To like really just put things in perspective. And I was like, I need to make some changes. This is not working. And I was working a lot and I was making a lot of money for a college student, but I was spending it on the other end. And I think I just had an inflated sense of what I could do and couldn't do.
I mean, this could be a whole other podcast. I mean, about
all the mistakes,
strategies and mistakes, and perhaps we'll revisit it. But we are close to people wanting to eat their lunch.
Let's eat.
Do we have any other questions? Or we have one more question.
You talked about like saving for kids, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you have kids. So how do you actually, like, you know, as adults we talk a lot about finance, right? But how does this conversations go to your family, and how do like kids get started on being responsible? I think early starts always better, right?
So the question is, if I got it right, is how do you begin educating your kids about money? So I'll just explain, you know, my son is 7, and I got an allowance when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I asked for one, much to my parents' chagrin. They were like, how did you learn about this thing? And I was like, my uncle told me. So we don't talk to that uncle anymore. And they started paying me. And so obviously I've been very money oriented since a kid. And I thought just by virtue of being from me that my son would have the same proclivity. And not really, you know, he's just not into it. But then about a few months ago, he said to me that he'd like to start making money, you know, and because he started to want more things, and you know, there's cutoff on that, and he was like, well, if I make my money, can I, you know, I'm like, well, let's come up with a chore board. So the lesson there is they'll tell you when they're ready. You know, I kind of would present him with the idea of an allowance or working at home, and he was like, sounds good, and then he would run off, you know. But this time he came to me, and I said, okay, well, let's talk about this. So we made like a work chart, so every day he has something to do, and we downloaded the app Go Henry, which also sponsors my podcast. And I wasn't even a user when they started sponsoring, but that was something that I knew, and I quickly went to it, and it's actually pretty awesome. And the kids can get their own debit card, which I think none of his other friends have. And when parents hear that my son has a debit card, they're like, really? And I'm like, well, it's not like he uses it but he actually used it at Target the other day, and he understands it, you know, like he understands. He earns the money from his chores. It's on his debit card. He can check the balance on my phone. I show it to him. So he's also at the age where he's learning how to really add big numbers and subtract big numbers, and he's getting it slowly but surely. And he knows that this is just, he doesn't have to spend it. I said, you know, with the app, you can also donate, you can invest, you can gift. So he's learning that money has many use cases. And but it's not something that we really like touch on every day, but he knows. And for even the younger kids, before you even start talking about allowance and all of that, it's when I go grocery shopping with my little one, when she was even littler, like 3, she would grab stuff and I'd say, we don't need that, we have enough at home. And it's just these little like moments where you're telling them, like, you're coming here for a purpose, you have a list, you're gonna buy what you need. And before, when there was cash, mostly cash transactions, I think it was a little simpler because they could see the money going away, like, I don't have any more money left for that other thing that we want. But my parents always just talked about money in a very non-threatening way, even though we didn't have much of it growing up. But when my mother would go to pay off a credit card at the department store, she wouldn't think to tell me about it, but I would ask because I was that kid, and she would tell me. You know, she wouldn't say, this isn't, don't worry about it. She'd say, well, this card, I used it to buy school clothes a month ago, and now I'm here to pay for it. And this is what this card does. It's a reminder to me that I have to come back and pay my bill. Okay, and then like at TJ Maxx, when she'd put things on layaway, like, what's that? You know, so it was just easy, breezy conversations, and anyone can do that at any income level. Of course, if money's a stress at home, you know, I will say that kids will pick up on that. So explaining to them, not so much what's stressing you out, but how you're working to make it better. You know, so if you lost your job, that weighs on kids. You know, they're worried about, like, what's this going to mean for us, but they want to know that there's, you know, work being done to get you on the other side. And, you know, what can I do? Kids want to help. Hey, well, turning off the lights in your bedroom, like helping me meal plan for the week, you know. And these are maybe for older kids, but I remember during the recession, I wrote for 17 magazine. This is the last recession, like 2008. And these young girls would write in and they'd say, my mom lost her job, or my parents are going through a breakup and money's tight, and I want to help, but they're not telling me anything. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a generation of young girls that want to help, and no one's talking to them about the important stuff. And I just, you know, so I would say to parents, like, engage your kids. They want to help. Don't underestimate what they actually can grasp and appreciate. And they will rise to the occasion, especially the ones that are coming to you proactively.
That is amazing. I was mentally filing away a lot of tips for my own daughter. One thing I'll maybe add to that is just be aware of the media they're consuming.
Yeah.
My daughter learned about credit from Raya and the Last Dragon. There's a little thing in there about like being able to just buy whatever you want and pay it back later. And my daughter understood the concept of credit, which has been helpful. Also hilarious when she's like, "Can we just put it on credit?"
Yeah.
But there are there's other things like YouTube videos, or whatever. They're all sponsored by toy companies. And they are less concerned with budgeting, let's just say. So it's also useful just to be aware of the messages that your kids are getting and to respond to them and engage them.
Absolutely.
This has been a wonderful conversation. May I say possibly at least a year's worth. Of,
in 30 minutes, yeah. But still, please buy the calendar.
Yeah. And everybody should. And also, holiday season. Great gift.
They fit. I already tested it in our stocking stuffers. They fit pretty well. I mean, just saying.
It is a wonderful, I don't think you can go wrong with it really, because again, it also tells you when Wednesday is.
And there's a 2023 calendar coming out, you know when.
But you'll need this to really know when.
But this is really, this will get you started, yeah.
Thank you so much for
coming
here.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
It's been great to have you.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you. Please come and have a little tour after walkabout, or just eat your lunch.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space.
You can purchase the calendars at the front desk for a generously subsidized rate by SaksWorks, since we bought them in bulk.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing to have you. You are so money.
Oh. It's the first time anyone has ever told me that.
It isn't. It can't be. Okay. See, I'm gullible. Sell me the Brooklyn Bridge. I'll be like, really? It's mine? Is it an NFT?
Yeah. How do I NFT the podcast cover? That's what I want to know.
I'm pretty sure
I tried to do
ways.
it, and then I thought no one's going to buy it.
Okay, that's the next time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm putting this down now. We're done.
Bye.
Go eat.